Hey there, internet friends, and welcome to That D Plus Show. Class is in session for the only show from that nerdy site that lets you know what kind of quality to expect right from the name. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and each week we dive into a different Disney Plus offering and discuss its history, how it holds up today, and our general impressions. Joining me today, we have Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cameron?
I am not your failure, Snarky Starkey. You didn't kill Cameron Abbott, the unsexiest comedian. I did. The same way, I will destroy you.
You will try. I hope that the audio picked up your lightsaber noise, because Discord certainly did not. So there was just a big old gap of sound there before you said your quote. So yeah, that'll be a fun thing to listen to in.
Oh no, the Audacity probably picked it up because
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, Audacity definitely picked it up.
Yeah.
Let me go ahead. It picked it up. Yeah, I can see the from the lightsaber for sure.
For audio viewers, Cameron lit up his lightsaber that we got at Disneyland earlier this year, and is now in full light. He has turned it off and is in normal viewing. So yes, of course, today we have reunited from the big long time of 5 weeks ago to discuss the whole season now of Obi-Wan Kenobi, now that the series has finished. Why did we pick it? Because the season finale is done. Before we dive into some thoughts on Obi-Wan Kenobi, a little bit of housekeeping with some upcoming episodes. Next week, we're going to go ahead and do Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness in honor of that also being released among a flurry of things that came out Wednesday night on Disney Plus. Doctor Strange, the latest MCU movie, is now available on Disney Plus thanks to their shortened theater run windows that we're seeing these days. And then following that, I will be fresh off of a trip from Disneyland, so I'm going to be doing as is my want, I'm going to be doing the part 4 / potentially final version of the Behind the Attraction little documentary series. And I don't even remember what those ones are about. So stay tuned for that in a couple weeks' time, because I've been doing those Behind the Attraction solo episodes every other Disney trip I've done this year. If you like the show, we would love it if you like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. So diving in, some of this might be a rehash from what we discussed a few weeks ago when we did the first 2 episodes, Cameron. But I tried to switch some things up here. But the history lesson, this was originally released May 27th, 2022, all the way up through June 22nd, 2022. The episodes had a runtime of between 39 and 56 minutes. In the Star Wars series timeline of things, we had Star Wars Visions came out in September of last year, followed by the Book of Boba Fett that came out December through February of this year. Now we had Obi-Wan Kenobi. Up next, we have the Andor series coming in August. And then we also have the recently announced Tales of the Jedi anthology series, The Bad Batch Season 2, which I believe actually has a date. I just don't have it written down anymore. Mandalorian Season 3 and Ahsoka are going to be coming out sometime next year in 2023. Mandalorian Season 3 specifically is slated for February of next year. The roll call.
Lots of Star Wars.
Yes, lots of Star Wars TV stuff these days. To make up for the the drought of films. On the roll call side of things, the director for all 6 episodes was Deborah Chow, who has done much TV work over the years, including little stints, usually an episode or 2, on shows like Mr. Robot, Iron Fist, Fear the Walking Dead, Jessica Jones, Better Call Saul, The Mandalorian, and as I highlighted at the beginning of this series, she also directed the recent Black Summer music video for the Red Hot Chili Peppers, which, probably led to Flea being involved in, or vice versa. The writers across the series, we touched on them before. Joby Harold, having done wrote on all 6 episodes, having previously written on projects like Awake, King Arthur: Legend of the Sword, last year's Army of the Dead, and then they are slated to work on the upcoming Transformers: Rise of the Beasts film, as well as the seemingly increasingly troubled Flash film, thanks to Ezra Miller. Hossein Amini, we talked about last time, wrote on 4 of the episodes. I believe the first 4 episodes of the series. They've also worked on Drive, Snow White and the Huntsman, and 47 Ronin. Stuart Beadle also wrote on 4. Stuart Beatty also wrote on 4 episodes, having previously written on projects like Pirates of the Caribbean: The Curse of the Black Pearl, Australia, and G.I. Joe: The Rise of Cobra. New to the fold for these last couple episodes, we had Hannah Friedman, who has written previously for a series called Friend Me. She was an on-set writer for Wet Hot American Summer: First Day of Camp. She was a creator and writer on the short series Trolls: The Beat Goes On, and she is slated as a writer for the upcoming Willow series. And then lastly, Andrew Stanton also wrote on these last couple episodes, probably best known to audiences, of course, for his work on Mighty Mouse: The New Adventures. And then, he was also on a handful of early Pixar stuff like Toy Story or A Bug's Life or Toy Story 2 or Toy Story 3 or Monsters, Inc., Finding Nemo, WALL-E, or if you like his live action stuff, John Carter.
I do.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
I'm a John Carter stan. I love John Carter.
Maybe that's one we can do a That D Plus show for in the near future.
Would love to. John Carter gets a bad rap.
On the starring side of things, I have a whole bunch of new names that were not in those first couple episodes. But before we get into them, some of the larger roles that kind of did exist over the course of the entire series. Of course, Ewan McGregor playing Obi-Wan Kenobi here. Previously in stuff like Trainspotting or Moulin Rouge, Big Fish, The Island, August Osage County, Beauty and the Beast, Fargo, Christopher Robin, Dr. Sleep, and Birds of Prey. And he has, of course, been playing the role of Obi-Wan Kenobi since The Phantom Menace. We had Hayden Christensen return as Darth Vader. I think when we last did this, he was basically like in the tease at the end of episode 2. We, of course, got to see much more of him over the course of the next few episodes, including flashbacks, including like phantom ghost visions, and then just in the Darth Vader outfit. He's also worked on projects like Life as a House, Shattered Glass, and Jumper, and he has had the role of Anakin Skywalker since Attack of the Clones. Moses Ingram playing Inquisitor Reva / the Third Sister. She's previously in projects like The Queen's Gambit and The Tragedy of Macbeth. Vivian Lyra Blair playing the fun little surprise of Leia in this series, having previously been in the video game Telling Lies. James Earl Jones, who we didn't have last time around, of course, reprises his role as Darth Vader, as the voice of Darth Vader, having voiced Vader since A New Hope. Or did he? We'll talk about that in the trivia. Indira Varma played the role of Tala, probably best known to audiences for her stint on Game of Thrones. O'Shea Jackson Jr. playing Roken, probably best known as Ice Cube in Straight Outta Compton. Kumail Nanjiani playing Haja, of course, from projects like The Big Sick and The Eternals. Rupert Friend playing the Grand Inquisitor and then leaving for a few episodes and then coming back as the Grand Inquisitor, previously having worked on projects like Homeland. He was, as I highlighted last time, Agent 47 in the second Hitman movie, aka Hitman Agent 47. He was also in A Simple Favor and The French Dispatch. Sung Kang never really got a ton to do as Fifth Brother, but
it was extremely disappointing.
He is, of course, Han in the Fast and Furious series since Tokyo Drift. Joel Edgerton playing Owen Lars, has been playing Owen since Attack of the Clones. He's also been in projects like Kinky Boots, The Great Gatsby, and The Green Knight. Bonnie Peace reprised her role as Beru Lars, having previously and originally played her in Attack of the Clones. And she didn't get a ton to do in that first episode, but she was there, and she got way more to do in the finale. Jimmy Smits, in his, I believe, 4th live-action appearance as Bail Organa, also having played Bail since Attack of the Clones. Of course, he's also been in notable projects like NYPD Blue, The West Wing, Dexter, and last year's In the Heights film. Simone Kessel playing Brea Organa, previously being in Our Flag Means Death earlier this year. Grant Feely as Luke Skywalker in the final episode there. Not really a ton to his name, and obviously he's not really the highlight of this series. And then a whole bunch of little cameos, including Benny Safdie, who we touched on in that first episode, playing Nari. He is the one of the directors of Uncut Gems, part of the Safdie brothers. We, as mentioned earlier, Flea playing the bounty hunter Vect Nehru, of course from Red Hot Chili Peppers fame, as well as Back to the Future 2 and 3. Zach Braff had a little cameo there as the voice of Freck, and maybe performance of. I don't know if he was actually in set like as the puppet for that thing, but of course Zach Braff from projects like Scrubs and Garden State. Tamora Morrison playing a little cameo as a veteran clone trooper. Of course, having played Django / Boba Fett, as well as various clone troopers since Attack of the Clones. Anthony Daniels reprises his role as C-3PO, going all the way back to A New Hope. Ian McDiarmid playing Palpatine in the little cameo here in the finale, playing Palpatine since Return of the Jedi originally. Even though if you watch Empire Strikes Back now, he has been like edited into it, but he originally did not debut until Return of the Jedi. And then finally, the last of the cameos that everybody saw coming a mile away, Liam Neeson playing Qui-Gon Jinn, has been playing Qui-Gon since Phantom Menace. And really only in Phantom Menace, I guess. Some trivia.
He's voiced Qui-Gon in several projects.
Has he? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Trivia, as I touched on previously, in the galactic timeline of things, this series takes place in the year 9 BBY, back before the Battle of Yavin, aka 10 years after Revenge of the Sith, which occurred in 19 BBY. Also in 9 BBY, we had the construction of the Death Star moving from Geonosis to Scarif, which occurred between the years 10 and 9 BBY. Some additional trivia. When Obi-Wan slashes off part of Vader's helmet in the finale, it mirrors a confrontation between Ahsoka and Vader from the Star Wars Rebels series.
Mm-hmm.
Despite having retired from composing anything Star Wars related after the sequel trilogy ended, John Williams did contact Kathleen Kennedy and requested to write something for this show, simply because Obi-Wan Kenobi had never had a character theme of his own before, and Williams wanted to write one for him. Which is why at the end credits you basically have like Obi-Wan Kenobi theme by John Williams and then the rest of the music by the other person. The girl who gives Obi-Wan spice in episode 2 and says, "I was somebody's daughter once too," is in fact Ewan McGregor's real life daughter. Did not have that trivia factoid at the time of our last episode, but that came out kind of after the fact. Ewan McGregor, if you've seen this meme going around, Ewan McGregor, age 51, is around 10 years younger than Alec Guinness was when Star Wars was released. And Obi-Wan, Star Wars 1977 and the Obi-Wan Kenobi series here in 2022 are set about 10 years apart in the storyline, making Ewan McGregor's age consistent now relative to Alec Guinness's age in 1977. And so if you're like, how is Ewan McGregor going to turn into Alec Guinness? Age happens, guys. I don't know what to tell you, especially in a planet with 2 suns and just full of desert.
Yep, that's something you're like, oh, well, I've aged like 10 years. It's like, you don't know what it's like to live in the desert.
Yeah.
Especially if you like I remember we talked about it last time, but like when you see men or women who have worked like outside in the sun for the majority of their lives, 10 years, their skin becomes leather.
Mm-hmm.
It is like, I had a friend, like there was a dad in the church that I went to growing up that was like, he was a roofer, and he, like, all of his kids super white. His skin was so dark, like it was to the point of being like a reddish blackish hue.
Mm-hmm.
Like he had just been in the sun for like he's been in the sun for like 40 years, and or not now, it's been 40 years, but at the time it was like 25, 30 years. Like he had been a roofer since he was a teenager, and like that's what he did for a living. And it was like he was crazy tan.
Mm-hmm.
Like and his skin was like the driest leather. I like he like when I think of people who, when they talk about being like sunbeaten, like this character is being described as sunbeaten, that's where my mind goes to. The fact that like that's all that happens to Obi-Wan in 10 years, good on Obi-Wan, keeping himself moisturized.
Yeah. I my first like one of my first jobs kind of like out of high school going into college was pushing carts at a Sam's Club, and then I also later did it at a Costco. And those like long 8-hour days of just pushing carts out in the Arizona sun, especially during like the summertime, was like I just had permanent tans on my arms. I had permanent farmer tans for months, if not years on end, during that phase of my life. So, yep, it'll do the trick. Continuing on with some of the trivia, as alluded to earlier, there's an IMDb trivia thing in here. I did some Googling around, and it seems to be a bit of in dispute, so I've got this as a disputed trivia point. But according to IMDb, although James Earl Jones is credited as the voice of Darth Vader, he didn't actually record new lines for the series. A company called Respeecher used advanced AI software to analyze Jones's voice and recreate a perfect rendition of Darth Vader's voice. The same technology was previously used in The Mandalorian and The Book of Boba Fett in order to clone Mark Hamill's voice. So there are a lot of like pieces out there of like James Earl Jones came back to record, or did he? And it's like, I feel like you guys could actually find out an answer for this. You probably have the right connections, but you're just writing a whole bunch of clickbait articles that I'm not actually going to click on to find a response, because you could just tell me the damn information. But whether he did or not, obviously he is credited for it. So even if they didn't actually use his voice, they probably did some kind of or called upon his voice, obviously, which also helped give it kind of a era appropriate tenor to his voice, as opposed to how James Earl Jones sounds now if he tries to play Vader. And then last little trivia bit here before we dive into our thoughts. Hayden Christensen was incredibly excited to reprise his role as Darth Vader for the first time in 17 years. He also took things a step further on refreshing himself on the franchise by watching both The Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels to see what was done with his character in those shows. So shout out to Anakin Skywalker, Hayden Christensen, do it like putting in the work. There were also stories early on about like Ewan McGregor having a hard time like refinding the voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi, so he had to also go back and like rewatch a bunch of stuff. Yeah. So what did you think?
Go Hayden Christensen putting in the work for like figuring out where Darth Vader's been.
Yeah, there was a fun little image of Hayden Christensen meeting Ashley Eckstein at Star Wars Celebration. Of course, her playing the voice of Ahsoka throughout the Clone Wars and Rebels series. So that was a fun, like, hey, Sky Guy, hey, Snips, little interaction that they had. Shout out to that. So, Cam, now that the series is been there and done, what are your thoughts? We were very high on this after the first couple episodes. What did you think about the rest of the series?
You know, I will say now that it's finished, I've thought a lot about it. If you asked me last night, I would have told you unparalleled, amazing, fantastic. And I still hold a lot of that same energy, but I do have a few things that I look at and I'm like, okay. Like there's a few things that I'm a bit, I wouldn't say trepidatious on, but I do find it not to be like inconsistencies or anything, just things that I think could have been done different way that were better. There is one of the things I love so much from A New Hope is that when Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader fight, I forgot his name, but he's the guy who choreographed all the famous sword fights from the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
I can't recall his name, but he choreographed this fight between Obi-Wan and Darth Vader to be a fight between two master swordsmen, which means the slightest error could mean defeat. And so every move was calculated, every step, everything they did was calculated. And I loved the contrast that they gave in not Attack of the Clones, but in Revenge of the Sith, where fencing was the primary method of how they decided to use the fighting style. And so rather than using this almost, very much inspired by the samurai kind of calculated movements, you had the fast flourishes of duelists. And I thought, I thought, oh, I understand what happened here. And then my brother-in-law and I were talking about it, and he goes, this is one of those things, and I realized it's the same thing Dave Filoni did when he described Duel of the Fates in that Mandalorian behind-the-scenes special thing.
Mm-hmm.
I had ascribed a reasoning behind the choreography being what it was in the final episode. That is not entirely fair or accurate, both in part because one, it's completely different as far as choreographers go, and all direction and everything. So it basically, my thought was, this is a fight between two old men, but they're at the same time they're old Jedi. And even though Obi-Wan has regained his prowess with the Force, which is a massive story point as he slowly reacclimates to the Force over the next the last few episodes, ever since he catches Leia at the end of episode 1, I believe,
episode 2.
Episode 2, yeah, when he catches Leia in episode 2. So when he does, when that happens, I thought that it was I love to see the progression that he had to the point where he was doing stuff with the Force that was much more powerful, and Darth Vader even saying oh, your
strength is returned. Yeah.
Returned. Yeah. That is such a cool moment in their fight. And I think a lot of things I like about that fight are kind of just how rough it can be at times, because it's something I was describing to my brother-in-law. Darth Vader's a cripple.
Mm-hmm.
In a power, in a suit with prosthetics.
Yeah, Obi-Wan Kenobi is attacking a handicapped person.
Yeah, 100% he is. Darth Vader has he has to walk the way he walks because he has no kneecaps. He can't bend his legs. His legs don't bend. It's solid. And he has no hands. And he's in his and he has terrible asthma from literally having his lungs catch on fire from sulfur. From a volcano planet. So I love the way, how do you beat Darth Vader? You just gotta last longer than him and also damage his respirator. Mm-hmm. You can beat him. Because that's how Obi-Wan does it. Otherwise, Darth Vader is overpowering him so much. And it isn't until Obi-Wan, in a scene that I think was cool, but I think should have been done differently, as I backseat direct this show that was amazing, is the barrage of stones that he summons from the ground.
Yeah.
I thought that was I saw that and I was and then he throws them and then he tiptoes his way closer and I'm I don't like this. This is the thing that I don't like about this. Also, I don't like the he gets buried by stones and I was okay, is this where Qui-Gon what happens is nope, he remembers there's kids out there. Ha! Mm-hmm. Granted, I also think that connects him to Luke being in danger at the moment. So there's something to do with that. Although I just like the idea that he's focused on the future now. He isn't focused on the past. I love that aspect.
Yeah.
I love it. And so I will say as I'm still super high on it.
Mm-hmm.
I still loved it. I missed episode 4 and 5, and then I caught up. We watched, my brother-in-law and I watched them back to back last week. Then this week I watched the finale. I was really, I will say I was not blown away by anything, but I was very impressed by very smart pieces of dialogue and smart choices that were made to basically set things in motion the way they needed to.
Mm-hmm.
The line I quoted at the beginning of our show, is literally one of my favorite lines out of the entire show, which is, for a long time, especially in the fandom and especially from a lot of people's perspectives, when they talk about it, they talk about Anakin's fall and how it's like, oh, look at all these things that Anakin was up against, like, oh, he was being manipulated, yada yada yada. It's kind of like we talked about it in our Summer of Star Wars, like Darth Vader getting like a redemptive moment, and like all of a sudden he's like okay now after he was like responsible for the deaths of like hundreds of thousands of people, or millions if you count him being in charge of like the death of people in Alderaan. Okay. Like you have like what I really liked about it is in this moment when he looks at Obi-Wan, he basically says, Obi-Wan, I'm not your failure. Like, you didn't do this to me. You didn't let this happen to me. It was like, I made my choices and I'm Darth Vader. Like, I made the decision to become Darth Vader. I destroyed Anakin Skywalker. And I love that moment because it's such a moment of ownership. Like he owns the choices he made, and he believes that he made and like I love it because it's like he believes he made the right choices. And like Darth Vader still thinks I'm the good guy.
It's also it and another line in there also cleverly sets up the Alec Guinness lines of no, Darth Vader killed Anakin Skywalker when he tells that to Luke, as well as when he greets Vader on the Death Star and calls him Darth as if Darth is his name. I liked kind of the nod to that / setting it up appropriately with Obi-Wan basically saying, okay, fine then, Darth.
Yeah, like that's who you are now. That's your identity. I love that. I love that idea of, there's a lot about that I love. There was so much that I like. Little Leia is one of my favorite things ever in the world. She was adorable beyond belief. She was believable. She had such great moments. One of the things that I'm like, I don't know why they decided, like, I know why they decided to do that, but like, I'm a little hung up on it is Obi-Wan just like comes down in broad daylight on Alderaan and is like, yo, I'm here.
I mean, like, sure, but he's doing it in a senator's private, like, helipad kind of thing. So it's not like just the masses of people are able to see what's going on there and or know who Obi-Wan is. So it's like,
that's fair. This dude literally stops down for like 5 minutes. Granted, he was bringing back a droid, which, I believe in droid rights, so I'm cool with that. But I also thought, like,
sure,
and then I do like how they're like, and it makes, like, it actually was just like, well, wait, if she was trying, like, how did she know that Obi-Wan was on Tatooine? Like, all this stuff that's kind of like vaguish about New Hope, when you really put that in perspective, all of a sudden makes more sense. Like, we can't act like we know each other. So when she's addressing Obi-Wan Kenobi, she says, you served my father in the Clone Wars, like giving this like, hey, and it makes sense if she's giving direction, where are we going to run from where are we running from the Empire? She, as like thinking back to when she was a little girl, like, the one person who can help me is Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah. And I dig it. If the message is intercepted, it doesn't betray some kind of like secret knowledge or secret relationship that the two had. And there's also, I saw going around today, a clip from A New Hope that is Luke Skywalker's in like saving her in the jail cell, and like Ben Kenobi is here, we're here to rescue you, and she says, Ben Kenobi, let's go. And like there's like a new contextual sense of joy in the potential reunion that she's sadly not really going to get. But
it also makes her consoling Luke after Obi-Wan's sacrifice mean that much more about her caliber of character.
Yeah, as well as because makes it helps contextualize why she would name her son Ben Solo instead of instead of Bale
else.
or instead of any other potential name, she goes with Ben in honor of Ben Kenobi.
That was always a big point, wasn't it? Like, Leia never actually met Obi-Wan Kenobi, and why would Han Solo name his son after the pseudonym of Obi-Wan Kenobi?
Yeah,
the pseudonym, not even the name of, the pseudonym of the guy who hired him. Like, what's the deal with that? And so it's like, oh, okay, it makes sense.
Yeah.
I get it now.
Lots of like it. This series did what like a lot of the Clone Wars has done of like doing a good job to help bridge the gap between generations of filmmaking. I did want to circle back. Bob Anderson is the fight
Bob
choreographer
Anderson.
that you were referring to earlier. And
Literally
yeah,
literally the last great sword wizard of the modern age.
uh, I disagree with that. Like he certainly is like an iconic fight choreography for his time, but I would say like because he did like the original trilogy, but when it came to like the new era or the prequel era rather, it was a different flavor, and hence you get like significantly different styles.
Oh no! I was referring to just like Bob Anderson as a person, like as a man.
Okay.
Like and his like legacy, because he's also like the he was the sword master for the Lord of the Rings films. Bob Anderson once said that what's his name? I almost said Hidalgo. But the actor who plays Aragorn, I can't remember his name right now.
Oh, because he was in Hidalgo.
Yeah, because he was in Hidalgo.
Yeah, I forget who you're talking about. But yeah, I know who you're talking about. But yes, I also forget his name I can't pull it off the top of my head.
I almost said Hugo Weaving, but that's not. That's
different guy.
Different actor.
Viggo Mortensen.
Viggo Mortensen.
There we go.
Yeah, Viggo Mortensen. Bob Anderson said Viggo Mortensen was one of the most talented swords men that he's ever seen in his entire life. So shout out to Bob Anderson being cool as hell, and shout out to Star Wars and Lord of the Rings for being cool as hell. But back to the point though. No, I absolutely. Sorry, we were at a point where we were talking about the way it recontextualized Star Wars, the films, and these moments in bringing to light. And what they did is they added to things rather than taking anything away.
Mm-hmm.
I think is what's really great about it. I will say, like, I love the idea of the path. I love the idea that it brings up, like, there are so many Force sensitive kids out there in the galaxy. Like, there are so many people out there who need help to hide from the Empire. And there are all these, there's the path, there's all sorts of like movements to do stuff. And I think at its core, like, so many things that I love about it, but I will have to say, I mentioned I was really looking forward to her failure. I am so impressed with how they did Rivas.
Got it.
Rivas. I am so impressed with how they handled her journey. You like money is on, like, money to you, not money to you, but props to you. Called it. She is a youngling, former youngling. It's like, oh, she ran away. It's like, no, she got stabbed.
Yep.
Anakin Skywalker stabbed her in the gut as a child. Gosh, that scene where he's brutally murdering the younglings in the hallway, and you're just like seeing like bodies crumple, and it's like, holy shit. Like we knew this is what he did, but like to see just like the empty malice in his face, like Hayden Christensen absolutely killed that scene. And just like so great. So great. But her story, her story of her fall and her redemption at the end, making the right choice at the end, and being free from her past, like that moment of her finding her peace and her redemption in that moment really like touched me in a way. I was really, really impressed with how they handled it. And the cutting back between her as a youngling and Luke as she struggled and fought because she's been going for so long for revenge, for the sake of revenge. And here's her revenge in front of her. And she realizes that if she takes it, she will be exactly what she was trying to end. And it's so beautiful and it's so wonderful. And her at the very end when she goes, what do I do? And Obi-Wan's like, you can do anything. You're free. Like,
and
it's such,
and she basically buries or leaves yet another lightsaber on the sands of Tatooine. Maybe that's why everything takes place on Tatooine, because everybody wants to just like everyone is gravitating towards all those lightsabers buried out there on the planet.
Dude, there must be talk about Keyblade graveyard from Kingdom Hearts. There must be a lightsaber graveyard out in Tatooine.
Mm-hmm.
Holy crap! No, I was just so impressed by her. I thought I loved her in Queen's Gambit. I loved her character in Queen's Gambit, and then on top of that, seeing her just be just such an amazing character who I was so excited to see how they handled her fall, because I'm like, oh, for sure the Grand Inquisitor comes back because, like, newsflash,
Because we know Rebels exists.
we know Rebels, but also we know that in Rebels, the last line he says to Kaden is, "There are things worse than death when you fail Vader," and it's true, because I learned it because I was like, I looked some stuff up about the Grand Inquisitor. Turns out,
He has a significantly worse after death. Yeah.
yep, and like it's actually not the first time he's been brought back to life. It's like, did Reva? Oh, she stabbed him in the gut and left him to die. It's like, no, she probably killed him, and then Darth Vader brought him back. Like, there are worse things than death when you fail Vader, and which also means like Vader knew the entire time, and it's just, it adds so many great layers to like what we already got from this show, and how it narratively tells it. But when you look back at it and you realize every time Vader's talking to her and teasing her with the Grand Inquisitor shit, he knows that she's the one that stabbed the Grand Inquisitor. Like, it's that. And it's also like, I loved how Obi-Wan puts it together. He goes, there's only one way you would know that Anakin Skywalker is Darth Vader.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you were there that night.
Yeah.
And it's such a great reveal. Because I was like, I really hope that she's not a youngling, because like, whatever, that's kind of, like, I'm tired of younglings, whatever. I loved it. I loved her, like, the idea that it's like, oh, she's a youngling who got away. No, she's a youngling who got murked. And she hid in the bodies of her, like, under the bodies of her dead friends, and felt them go, what she says, and I felt them go cold. Like, I got shivers down my spine when she had that line. God, she was just so amazing. Hayden Christensen, when it's his voice cutting in with the Darth Vader modulator voice.
Yeah.
Cutting in and out. It is incredible. Chills, like literal chills up and down my spine. This entire moment that is just like,
yeah.
And also like Obi-Wan being like, I'm ready to kill Vader now. And then just like seeing what he is in, like in the aftermath, and realizing like, and saying like, I'm sorry. Like, and it's like this moment of like, I can't kill you because like it's wrong. Like, with the way that he feels and everything. And I was like, I loved it. I love that he walks away. I love that he lets him, like, he once again, for the second time, lets Vader live. And like the moment where he goes like, and then my friend is truly dead. Like, that's like such a brutal moment, and I loved it.
Yeah, the audio work in that sequence of like Hayden Christensen being blended with James Earl Jones's voice is one of my favorite effects in years in Star Wars. I thought like the way that was handled was incredibly well done. I like that whole sequence, and then even more so after seeing Twitter, because Twitter just has no chill, trending and basically like showing the comparisons between the Obi-Wan fight and the Ahsoka fight, and it literally being a mirror of in Rebels, she cuts off the other side of the mask, and just like the parallels between those two people who, apart from Padme, loved and knew Anakin the most, being able to also be the ones that see him in his most vulnerable state. But it's not until obviously Luke gets his full helmet off that we see Anakin Skywalker again.
Well, it's interesting because only like Obi-Wan and Ahsoka, either of them could only get half that mask off.
Yep.
And it was Luke who got the entire thing.
Yep.
And I love all of that.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much about that I love. God, they're so like, it's such a great moment where you get like the makeup, the paled, yellowed eyed, like Darth Vader, like peering through this like still like kind of like hot circuited mask, as his respirator's failing, as he's like, and I'm still going to destroy you. And then, by the way, I just want to give a massive shout out to Ian McDermott. Once again, absolutely, like, he's in it for 30 seconds and just kills it in that moment where he just says, like, my old friend, you seem agitated. And it's just such a once again, it's not like I'm the emperor, it's the manipulator, the master manipulator, to basically be like, he knows if I don't stop Vader now, Vader's going to commit the entirety of the Empire to hunt down Obi-Wan. So I'm going to basically be like, are you letting your past get to you? And it's like, and basically but it veiled in saying, let this one go. And when Vader says, yes, my master, there's like a seethe to it. That is just so good. I just loved, like, yes, my master. Like, oh, like, here's the thing. I'm still super, like, I preface this at the beginning by saying, listen, there are some things I didn't care for, some things that I thought were, like, trepidatious in certain areas. But outside of that, I loved it. This entire show is phenomenal. I loved every moment of it. I have to say it's up there for me with some of my best and my most favorite Star Wars content. And it was even more elevated when our surprise last-minute cameo by none other than Liam Neeson as Qui-Gon Jinn. And him like, master, oh. Like, and Qui-Gon just being like, I've been here the whole time. You just weren't ready to see me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like,
yeah.
Chef's kiss.
By that point, I was like, if he doesn't show up, I'm not going to be mad. But, like, clearly they'd already planted the seed so much that it was inevitable he was going to. And so I kind of fall on the, like, he showed up and I was like, okay, that wasn't worth the 5 other episodes of teasing it. But
it was worth it.
Whatever.
It was 100% worth it. When he says,
I disagree.
come on, we have a long ways to go. And it's like, yes. Because we know from, like, material that Qui-Gon Jinn discovered how to become a Force ghost.
Mm-hmm.
Like, through, like, natural methods, not like, I'm so powerful in the Force, my identity survives in it, but rather a way that anybody could.
Yeah. So he's basically going to spend the next 10 years or whatever telling Obi-Wan how to do it, which, sure, great. He doesn't do that with Yoda. He doesn't do that with
he does do it with
Anakin.
Yoda, because at the end of episode 3...
in Rebels, right?
Yeah. And not even just in Rebels, but in the end of episode 3, he tells him, like, Yoda says, like, like an old friend, like...
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, he doesn't spend the time teaching Yoda, this is how you make this happen. He definitely doesn't ever do it with Anakin, so... Like,
no, Anakin
throw
is
all
the
of that
example
into like there's no explanation for why Anakin shows up as a Force ghost at the end.
Anakin's the chosen one. That's how it happened. I said I prefaced it by saying, if there's a powerful enough identity and you're strong enough in the Force, your identity is preserved in the Force as a Force ghost.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you have to use the method that Qui-Gon discovered, which is the method that the shaman of the wills uses. That the shamans of the wills. That's a hard phrase to put together, uses to preserve their lives after death in order to continue teaching and educating people. So, there you go. Like, once again, and so when he's like, hey, and like, you weren't ready to see me because you weren't ready to move on. You weren't at, like, this whole thing. It's like, this is just like chef's kisses. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Love it.
Yeah. It does not do nearly as much for me, but maybe that's just because I've never really cared that much about Qui-Gon Jinn. He's in one of the weakest films for me, so it's like,
he makes that film.
He's
him and the trade embargoes.
No, shut the hell. I want to just end this call right now and kick you off this stupid site. I will. The last thing I really want to give some love to, and admittedly, like, a lot of this episode has just kind of centered on the finale, because I think that is obviously the most recent thing in our memories, but also I think it is probably the highlight of the series.
100%, yeah.
But that reunion of Obi-Wan with Leia at the end, and like,
it's adorable,
and telling her, like, these were the qualities you got from your mother, these are the qualities you got from your father, was just a beautiful, like, sequence, and like a good way of honoring Padme and Anakin before Vader, um, in like a really nice, cool way. And I liked, I didn't pick up on that this is what this was, but I liked that the holster that Obi-Wan gives her is Tala's holster that has
Mhm.
like the notches of all the people that she was able to kind of help get out. So I like that there's like a lineage to that element of her outfit.
You didn't
Which
get strong dice moments?
I didn't, and like I
I
know,
did not either. No.
I know, like kind of funny. Basically, said that same kind of thing. Yeah, no, I didn't get any dice moments from it or anything like that. In large part because like I
It's
don't.
actually part of her attire and like not and
It
like
is,
something
but
that's iconic about her outfit. Yeah.
it's yeah. I don't think of her holster ever when I'm thinking about Leia Organa. Um, but I did see that like it is part of her in like the comics and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, that's a cool little like
Yep.
thing to explain like, you know, the backstory of her holster or whatever. But it's like, yeah, it's not anything I needed, but it's a cool little thing that like this thing that this young girl has is going to have kind of meaning. And more symbolic than anything is I'm like when she's like it's empty and Obi-Wan's like, well, I wasn't going to give you a
Give you a
blaster.
blaster, you're 10.
Yeah, I'm not thinking of anything that related to that, but I am thinking of her having zero qualms about stunning somebody, or shoot not even stunning because they stun her. Her shooting people at the beginning of A New Hope, or her
Absolutely not. Yeah.
later stunning people in the sequel trilogy and stuff like that. She's all too happy to get her blaster on. So
I will
I
say
like that.
I like that because it also says that there's something about Tala's legacy with Leia.
Hmm.
Tala clearly was like a big inspiration to Leia when they are introduced, and she's like, "Why? Like you're doing this thing?" And she goes, "Well, I have to do something. Like the Empire is not what it says that it should be, and we have to help these people." And it says so much about her going from being sheltered on Alderaan. It's like, oh, she's just naturally this gifted, kind-hearted person who's like going out of her way to be like a rep, like all. And it's like, no, she's inspired by people.
Hmm.
She's inspired by her father. She's inspired by her memory of Tala. She's inspired by Obi-Wan, like these people who just go out of their way to help people.
She's inspired by the
Rogan
path and
by the path, yeah.
happy to get invested in those early years of the Rebel Alliance and stuff like that. Like, yeah, I liked on the broader scale, I liked the concept of the path as a
Mm-hmm.
whole, and whether we like I mean it definitely like I like the like underground railroad kind of vibes to it. um
100%.
uh, uh and I'll be very curious if we see more of it in something like Andor coming up. Same with like
Mm-hmm.
Roken coming back in something like Andor, because clearly they're seeming to tee up something with him, based on the like I'm just getting started or whatever. I when he said that line, I was either like they're about to kill him off or he's going to be back in a future project. Cool. um and that just reminded me one other thing I want to give a shout out to, because like weirdly it felt like the first time I'd ever seen this in a Star Wars. But I liked at the beginning of this finale episode where it's the Star Destroyer pursuing their little ship, and the ship is actually trying to do like maneuvering abilities and stuff like that to avoid the blaster fire. Um, because I think like so iconically we have like the Tantive 4 from the beginning of A New Hope that's just kind of like on a steady straight path, that seeing a ship actually trying to like avoid shots from a Death Star or from a Star Destroyer, was like, this feels so unique to live action. Obviously it's something see probably pretty regularly in like the animated stuff, but in like even going back to something like The Last Jedi, it's not like the the in that epic slow chase through space, it's not like the rebel ship was making any kind of like maneuvering efforts. They're just kind of still going on a straight path and just being like, our shields are taking the blow, we're fine. So like it added this weird like, oh, somehow this simple little thing feels like something I've never seen in Star Wars before. So I just like that little design choice. Um, any other last thoughts or anything you want to give some love to or give any shout outs to there, Cam?
Yeah, I definitely want to give a massive shout out to Deborah Chow for just like helming this entire series. There was such a I remember back when they went on like they took a massive break in development to kind of like go back to the drawing board and stuff, and I don't know what that was. I'm looking forward to kind of like oh, wrong thing. Looking forward to
The like
yeah, to like
Disney gallery behind the scenes of this.
yeah, I want to know what was the holdup? Like what was the thing that kind of like was the thing that kept it from like what did they say this isn't working, let's go back to the drawing board. I'm super curious about that. And also I would just want to give a massive shout out. There's a lot of people who probably would just be like at this point, especially like in like the grips of the pandemic and everything else, like how it can't have been easy to try to get these things together in the end. And just an absolute for somebody who is known for doing a couple episodes of a series here and there all over the place in television, for her to like really take ownership and the direction and the way that her cinematography. I was not always a fan of the way that sometimes the action of the show was shot, but her cinematography, her wide shots, her scenery was so incredible. I was blown away by so many scenes of just really inspired like choices with cinematography and letting these wide shots kind of like pan out and like let them tell the story that the scene is telling, rather than doing these like zoom in shots or like these close ups all the time. She did an amazing job, and I'm so impressed by the work she did. I'm impressed by everybody, like every level of production on this. Just what an absolute blast. I'm a little sad it's over, but at the same time, I'm still incredibly impressed by it.
Yeah. The last little thing I want to say is shout out to Aunt Beru getting some like badass justice.
Oh hells yeah! Oh yeah! All the way. By the way, the entire Riva coming in and the moment with like Owen's her saying like you really think of him as your own, and he goes he is my own, and like that is like such an amazing. I totally skipped over this part because I focused on Riva's redemption moment, but her stalking the Lars's homestead is an awesome moment, even though like first off. The fact that like Beru is just like, oh, and we knew this day might come.
Yeah,
like let's get ready.
She is so ready to fight. I was like, it's a fun subversion to the minimal things we know of the character from A New Hope, and I was just like, oh, that's just a really cool extra flavor to give that character of like when they know to prepare, they're ready for some shit. Obviously 10 years from now, they're going to be kind of blindsided by a bunch of stormtroopers, invading their home. But it was like it was fun to see them defend their homestead against a admittedly weakened Inquisitor, and hold their own in doing so. But yeah,
putting everything on the line to.
In particular, Beru just being like, we have to fight, and just immediately going for like the blaster rifles and stuff like that. I was like, shout out to you, Beru. Justice for Beru.
Aunt Beru always being the homie, always being down for it, down with the cause. Love Aunt Beru.
Yeah.
Uncle Owen, a curmudgeon. Oh, by the way, I love that moment where he goes, "I'm gonna like." Obi-Wan's like, "I'm gonna like." Like his
all he needs now is you.
That was you.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
And that moment where he's like, all he needs is just his family. Like the rest will figure itself out. Like I'm not like concerned about it at all. Like, hey, I'm gonna take a step back. Don't worry. And then as he's walking away, be like, Ben, you want to meet him?
Mm-hmm.
Like that curmudgeonly, like I know what I should do. And here's the thing: normally when this trope shows up, it's like, Ben, why don't you stay for dinner? Or Ben, why like. You should come around more often or something like that. It's like, no, I'm going to let you meet the boy.
Yeah.
Like Owen.
Give him your dumb little toy. Get to say the meme. And then
And they get the fuck off my farm.
yeah, and then go off into the desert.
Loved it. I love that aspect of it. I love that he walks into the canyon that he appears in at the in the A New Hope. It's great, man. I loved it. And also shout out to him for becoming a homeowner. He moved out of his cave apartment and he moved into a home.
Yeah. There you go. In this economy.
In this economy, can you imagine?
Yeah. Yes. Shout out to that. And that was another thing, like the fact that he said the thing was trending on Twitter on Wednesday morning was just like, God, the internet is stupid. We're all doomed. But shout out to Obi-Wan Kenobi's hello there. Yeah. Good stuff. Definitely some of the middle episodes for me were a little bit of a lull in terms of like the action and just trying to gauge where they were going with some of the story beats and stuff. But overall, like the end destination was more than I could have asked for, and I thought did a great job. That the final confrontation between Obi-Wan and Vader was just like spot on in so many great ways, and did a lot of fun little clever things to set up or to bridge the gap between prequel era and the original trilogy and stuff. So shout out to all of that. So let's dive into our report card and grade Obi-Wan Kenobi the full season. Who knows if we'll get a season 2? Maybe we'll see something down the line, some kind of new adventure from Obi-Wan Kenobi that will span some point of the next 8-9 years, or at least some point of the next couple years prior to where we catch up with him in Rebels. Yeah, who knows? But what do you want to give Obi-Wan Kenobi season 1 from
it's an
A+?
It's an A+. It's an A+. It's an A+. Awesome. Love it. A+.
The finale gets an A+ for me. I think there were enough other elements over the course that are going to bring it down a little bit from like a full A+ for me. In particular, I don't think I was as hot on like the Reva arc as you were, like the redemption. I thought it was interesting that like it wasn't that she was a good person in hiding, trying to, like, she was still a bad person, but she was going to do the Sith thing of trying to take out Vader, but just like fails so miserably at that, that I was just like, I wish she had gotten some kind of like upper hand on somebody in there to warrant her being a more viable threat. But overall, like, performance is great, and yeah, just a lot of great stuff throughout the course of the series, I would say. But yeah, it gets a solid A for me, nonetheless. Nice. Extra credit, other suggestions if you like this. When we first did this, it was pretty much all Star Wars stuff, but I will say Miss Marvel has knocked one of the Star Wars things out of the mix, potentially because they're like, hey, let's promote the other new show that's going live every Wednesday. So Miss Marvel is on there. I don't know necessarily if you would like Miss Marvel if you are just a fan of Star Wars, but I'm certainly enjoying Miss Marvel. But then other than that, you have Star Wars Episode 1, Episode 2, Episode 3, and Episode 4. So Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, and A New Hope. And then you have Star Wars The Clone Wars series, Star Wars Rebels, and Star Wars Mandalorian. Miss Marvel ended up knocking Star Wars The Book of Boba Fett off of that list, from what we discussed previously. Extracurriculars. Are you watching anything else out there on the Disney Plus these days, Cam?
Miss Marvel.
Miss Marvel? Yep, me as well.
Yep, I have to catch up, but yeah, that's basically what I'm on right now.
Have you watched anything beyond the first episode?
No, it's queued up, ready to go.
Definitely catch up on that show.
Yeah, catching up as soon as I can.
It's some good stuff. It's been the only reason I've been watching Obi-Wan first is because I feel like my inability to actually stay disconnected means that I was more likely to, when I stayed up on Tuesday night / Wednesday mornings to watch these episodes, I was going to more likely be spoiled on Obi-Wan Kenobi than I was on Miss Marvel. But Miss Marvel is certainly the one that I've been very much more excited to check out. Obi-Wan ended up being like a very pleasant surprise, especially with this finale. But like, I'm really enjoying the tone and all of the performances of Miss Marvel. So very much shout out to that. We will do a full wrap up of that as an upcoming episode as well. I guess that would probably be what I mentioned. Next week would be Multiverse Madness, which would coincide with Miss Marvel episode 4. Behind the Attraction will be episode 5. So the episode after that will most likely be the Miss Marvel series wrap up of that D Plus show. So stay tuned for more thoughts on that in the coming weeks. Because yeah, that's gonna be some good stuff. Yeah, I think that's it in terms of what I've been watching on Disney Plus. So shout out to all of that. That's going to do it for this episode of That D Plus Show. Thank you, Cam, for joining me to talk about Obi-Wan Kenobi. You can follow Cameron at Rev Cabot. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Cam?
Yeah, massive shout out to the latest episode of Friday Night Dying Light that will be. This goes live on Saturday.
No, this goes live Friday.
Friday morning. Yeah, that's what I thought. It'll go live later tonight. It's a cool episode where I literally talk about how we are wrapping up Obi-Wan. Or like we should be wrapping up on Obi-Wan, so look for that content, which is this content.
There you go.
So
cyclical nature of things.
Yep, because Trevor literally asked me before we started recording, "Hey, what's going on with this new episode of Friday Night Dying Light?" And I said, "It's being edited." And I had literally just got to the part of the episode where I say, "Hey, we'll probably be finished up with Obi-Wan by then." So there you go.
There you go, indeed. You can follow me at Trevor J. Starkey. In addition to Cameron's Friday Night Dying Light series, you can also watch my Let's Play of the first hour of Dying Light 2, because I finally bit the bullet and hopped into the game and have since beaten the game in the time between basically when I recorded that Let's Play last week and today. So yeah, Dying Light 2. It is certainly a game, and I fully understand why it is taking Cameron a lot longer to beat the game in 30 to 45-minute chunks than it took me over the course of like a 4-day weekend kind of vibes. But yeah, go check out all of that content over on youtube.com/thatnerdysite. New Let's Plays every Tuesday and Thursday, and Cameron's ongoing series every Friday evening. You can follow all the latest from us over at That Nerdy Site or go to thatnerdysite.com. I guess I will also shout out this weekend will be the finale of our other limited run series, That Bond Show. Logan and I have wrapped up all the movies. Our No Time to Die episode went live last week. And then this final week is going to be kind of a series wrap up discussing the franchise as a whole. And potential thoughts on the future of the Bond series. So go check that out as well. If you liked what you heard, once again, please like, rate, review, subscribe, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. Thank you for joining us. As always, stay nerdy, be good to each other, class dismissed, and may the force be with you.
And also with you.